Welcome to We Keep It Moving, WKIM Media Network. And I am so excited. We have with us tonight an incredible show with author Stacy Spikes, award winning entrepreneur and author. Movie Pass Take Two. Stacy Spikes, whose subscription service relaunched last fall, discusses the corporate takeover that bankrupted it. In 2011, he co founded MoviePass, a service that let users pay a flat monthly fee to see up to one movie a day in theaters. He pitched it as Netflix for movie theaters. The launch was rocky as several big chains announced that they wouldn't participate. AMC Theaters called MoviePass a small fringe player and threatened to sue. The company eventually reached around 3 million subscribers, but Spikes had trouble raising capital to keep it going. 2017, it was taken over by the now defunct data analytics firm Helos and Matheson. Soon after, Spikes criticized some of the firm's business decision, including the adoption of the unsustainable low monthly subscription of $9.95. He was pushed out, and MoviePass went under in 2021. Spikes bought the company back out of bankruptcy. He relaunched it last fall. And he's probably spent hundreds of hours in movie theaters around New York. And he believes that researchers should use movies to train artificial intelligence algorithms to understand humans. If aliens came down from another planet and they wanted to get to know us, they should go to the movies, right? Then they would understand us. A trailer with all of that is playing. And, you have to go and follow up, read everything you can read about Stacy Spikes and his Black founder, the hidden power of being an outsider. And I am so excited that he is here with us. And this is going to be a wonderful interview. I can just tell. Hi.
Hello, Marcia. How are you?
I'm excited. I am really excited. I started reading this book and I was like, oh, this brother ain't playing. You went for real. You started out saying, I'm going to be successful, basically. That's basically what you said. And you went through the process of identifying. Now, this is my imagination, and based on what I read, you looked around to see who was doing what where.
Yeah.
And you identified the players in the leadership roles throughout LA and New York and decided I'm going to be a player in this. I'm going to learn and meet everybody and their mama and daddy, right?
Yes.
And then I'm going to call and glean from every single person. You were a sponge.
Yes. And read every book on them I could possibly find.
Every book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you first started out and you were
Hmm.
sitting down looking at the landscape, something in you was you were restless. You couldn't just sit still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But how did you have the audacity to go to the places in your journey? The first place that you went, the audacity to do what you've done.
I always think having parents who went to HBCUs, growing up in a Black community, Sidney Poitier talked about you didn't know any different. You were raised to go in, and if you don't ask for it, you can't get it. If you don't try, you'll never succeed. And you just didn't know, not to go ask and not to go try. I didn't realize you don't realize you're Black till you get out there and you are met with the adversity that you're going to have to meet.
Mhm.
But when you get long enough that you're doing that and you don't realize it, you're just out there doing what your parents taught you, whether you're going to play ball or be a doctor or be a lawyer. I just happen to like the entertainment space. And so, that was just natural. When I was a kid, my mother I would see her with her own TV show. And seeing that and growing up with that kind of entrepreneurialness, you just didn't know what you couldn't do. It was like nobody said, "Oh, you're a woman, you can't have your own TV show," right? It's
Mhm.
she was Oprah before Oprah, and I think being raised with that really just gave me that kind of mindset.
But what was the mindset that you had to make certain that you continued along those paths? Your parents poured into you,
Hmm.
but you also decided that you wanted to get the other points of view.
Yeah.
Your sphere was a nice size, but
Hmm.
you didn't have the boundaries that many people put on their spirits.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that? And it says an outsider has a unique point of view and can see things others can't.
You know what it was? I mean, this is you and I before we started we're talking about reading. When I was a little kid, I used to read Tom Swift novels.
Mm.
And Tom Swift was, this adventurous kid who went to outer space. He'd make anything he wanted. And my mind thought, you can do that, right? Then I started reading books about people who were doing things. I read Barry Gordy's book. I read Richard Branson's book. I read David Geffen. I read Sam Walton's book. And these people were doing the same thing. So you develop this mindset that that seems only natural because they're doing it. Is not, I'm still in high school. I don't know that you can't do those things. So when you step out into the world, you think that's how it's supposed to be because that looks normal to you from your kid books that were fictional characters to Richard Branson talking about Galactica and talking about going to other planets. That was a through line. So I think that reading at a really young age and the types of books I was reading gave me that point of view of the world.
And in looking at that, right?
Mhm.
Looking at the level of people that you're reading. So you're while you're reading the Tom Sawyers or something else, right? You're also reading about people who were on a trajectory to be successful. They
Mhm,
had a
mhm,
plan, they had a life
mhm,
plan, and you were reading that. And so
mhm.
as you as you take 4 or 5 of those books
Yeah.
and you put them together, what would you say would be the 3 main streams of subject matter in those books?
Follow your dreams, trust your instincts, and believe in yourself. When no one else does and everybody thinks you're crazy, believe in that little voice inside of you that's saying, you can do this. This is a good idea. Because every person, if you look around your world, the chair you're sitting in, the desk you're at, the the technologies that we're looking at each other through, all of that was somebody's crazy idea that someone said that can't happen.
Mhm.
And so the whole world we live in is built off of people who go make things happen that people said couldn't happen. So I think that believing in your dreams are these whispers from the universe to move forward and create new things. And I think there's people who build things, and I think there's people who use those things that people built. And those are the two people in the world.
Mhm. There's you spoke to a high school counselor, Mrs.
Mm.
Fry.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you talk about Mrs. Fry, the counselor?
Mrs. Fry knew I had this restlessness and I wanted to not go to college. I wanted to go to LA. And she says, if you say to your parents that I said this, I'm gonna deny it. But because my father was a school principal at the time, she said, she closed her door and quietly said, you need to follow your dreams so that you do not regret your life. And if your dream
Mm.
is to go to LA and go chase this thing. Don't do what's right for your parents. Do what is right for your soul. And that was the moment that an adult kind of no adult had really said, you follow that thing. Because if you don't follow that thing, you can get 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and then you're redirecting your course and you're mad at everybody in your life because you did what they told you to do. And I only had $300 when I moved to Los Angeles, you know. I know my parents thought I was going to probably make it to Albuquerque and have to turn back, but I
Right.
didn't. I didn't,
Mhm.
They figured they would Western Union me some money and I'd be home in a week.
And you say, I don't think so. Excuse me.
Like $300 is all I need, and that's what I did it on. Nowadays, I'm like, that was crazy. That was an act of damn foolishness.
Yeah, but you wouldn't trade it. You wouldn't trade
No,
it. And I
no,
had a similar experience growing up. That my I didn't want to go to Dillard University in New Orleans,
yeah,
and I got accepted at Stanford.
yeah,
And they sent me down there. I was there for a semester. And I called my Uncle Roy
yeah,
and I moved to Carson, California.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I understand that. You have to just do it. And I
yeah.
wouldn't change any of that. Do you have any regrets from that time, that movement?
No, not at all. I think if Mrs. Fry was right, if I didn't do it, I would have regretted it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Best advice I ever got.
I'm sorry.
The best advice I ever
Hmm.
got.
There was something in here that I put a little blue sticky on, and it says that you didn't suffer fools lightly, parentheses, gladly. What
True.
what occurred for you to say that? Because I think that that is something that you carried with you as well.
I mean, you get off the boat or you get off the bus and you're wet behind the ears and you don't know what you're doing, but you learn and you start to learn really fast and you have to learn in the streets and you have to learn the hard way and people come at you and whatever you'll take, they'll give you, right?
Mhm.
However, they'll run right over you and you got to develop a backbone, but you also have to remain open and flexible. You can't become jaded. You can't become hardened. You need to walk into that room each time with a smile on your face and open to any new possibilities. You don't want to carry the baggage in there and say, last week, this meeting I went into sucked. Is this one going to suck too? Right? You need to come and bring some enthusiasm and optimism, and people will meet you there, but you also meet knuckleheads along the way, and you got to know that.
So there is a piece here that you had some garbage bags. I was on the floor. I was just on the floor. I was in here. I was on the floor. I was on. I I was on the floor. I couldn't stop. Tears were rolling.
True story.
Tears.
True
Please,
story.
can you? How did you get the garbage bags in the first place? And then what
Okay,
happened to the
okay,
garbage bags?
okay. So I get the green light from my parents. I'm gonna move, and I had an Uncle Joe who lived in Los Angeles. He was in Orange County. So it's my mom's brother. So I had a truck because everybody in from Texas drove trucks back then. So I had this pickup truck and I had my electronics inside. And so all my luggage and my other stuff, I put them in trash bags so that if it rained while I was driving, everything would stay dry, right?
Mhm.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So it's late, it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I get to Joe's place. And so I don't wake up the family. I realize, well, I don't want to leave all my belongings sitting in the back of the truck. So I
Right.
bring them in the garage, set them in. I'm not going to drag them in his house. And they had made the couch out for me, left me a note, left me some little dinner on the counter, and I ate. And he had two young kids at the time and his wife. And so I go to bed. And then I'm kind of coming to, and Joe's in the kitchen, and his wife Norma wakes up, and they're chit chatting, and they said, where's all your stuff? Where's your bags and stuff?" And I said, "Oh, I put them in the garage. They're in these trash bags." And Joe says, "Trash bags? Well, I just put the trash out. The trash people just picked up all that trash." And I said, "That's not trash, it's my stuff." And I ran out. I'm still in my underwear. And I run out and I see the trash truck gone with all my stuff. And that was my first day away from home. It's everything's gone. I lost everything. Yeah,
Oh,
that was how I got started.
that's how you got started. And
Yeah.
but also that that also says from that moment, what was that lesson that you learned? Because you had some lessons from that and the reflection as you watched that garbage truck roll down the street.
Don't get attached to your stuff. Don't
Especially
get too attached.
because you never know.
Oh yeah, no, no, and that wasn't the last time my stuff got taken. It's like even to your company one day, right? What happens when your company gets taken? It was a
Mhm.
repeating thing. It that was the beginning of the idea of what the brain that helped you get where you are. They didn't take that,
Mhm.
so you can get stuff back again because they didn't
That's
take who you are.
that's really powerful. That's really, really powerful because while looking at the garbage truck going down the street, there's a lesson there that also stays in your spirit on how to make certain that you're going to maintain whatever it is that you need to do in order to continue to move without feeding into the trauma.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so from a corporate standpoint, because you just went there, how do you manage that and balance those experiences, because that's heavy duty. You
Yeah,
build a dream and then it's gone.
yeah,
I've been there,
yeah,
done that one.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, and so
yeah.
how do you recover? What are the tools, that's a good one, the tools that you use to recover those those little hiccups that cross your path?
I talked about this a lot, and again, it was how I was raised. When I got let go and I lost Movie Pass, the next morning, the first thing I did was I went and started reading the book of Job.
Hmm.
And it's the oldest book in the Bible. And here's this well-to-do person, and there's this bet going on between heaven and hell that the devil can break Job, but God's got a hedge around him. And I always think about, what if heaven and hell are counting on me?
Hmm.
What if that bet's happening again now on me? Will it break me to lose everything? Will it break me to, have things not go my way? And I always think about Job in that situation where he lost his kids, he lost his house, he lost his business, he lost everything. And people walked up to him in the street, ripped his beard out, and spit in his face. And yet he did not lose his faith that things could turn around and he would be okay. And that was the first thing I did. Was I sat there the next day at home in the bed and I read the book of Job. And something about stories, that's why I work in the business of storytelling. There's something about stories that are so powerful. They we need them. Another book that I read that was very powerful was Steve Jobs's book about how he got fired from Apple, you know. So anyway, I think that it's the power of that.
But it's the power and your faith also
Hmm.
that helps you navigate that. Because
Hmm.
sometimes when you go through those, it's about how you believe that God is moving you because there's something better. There's
Yes.
something different, and this
Yeah.
path is not the direction that you need to move into.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a consequences of drugs and such.
Hmm.
Can you speak to that chapter and how you moved through it? Because you moved quickly through it.
Yeah.
You seem to do an assessment of your environment, and then you develop the strategy to be deployed.
I get out of school, I get to LA, and I'm grown. You can't tell me nothing. I can hang out at the speakeasies, I can roll, I can go to the club now, and I'm out of my parents' house. Can't tell me anything. And I ended up in the hospital from a weekend of way too much fun. And in that hospital, I was in there for about 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, I think these people are overreacting a little bit, about this weekend I just had. And they're using all these scary language. You need to change your life. And I was in one of these meetings and I was disturbing the group. And the head nurse came and took me out of the meeting. She said, "You know what? You need to leave this hospital because you're you're preventing other people from being able to get what they need here, and you need to go." And she was kicking me out of the hospital. And right before I left, she said, "I don't feel sorry for you, but I feel sorry for everybody that loves and cares for you because God's given you a chance to turn your life around. But we bury kids like you all the time." And she said, "Now get out of my hospital." And I remember going to my room, packing my bag, and this very distinct voice said, "Do not leave this hospital. And you need to listen to what that woman said." And from that day forward, I said, If that happened to me that easily, that a weekend I can go overshoot the moon that much, I said, I am not going to touch alcohol and drugs. And I haven't ever since. Said, I'm just not going to have that be part of my life. And I've seen so many people and friends that I've gone to funerals that they stayed on that path. And I'm really grateful that I was able to get off of it.
Too often we don't see ourselves at the end. We
No.
see the moment, we
Yeah.
don't see the result of what that activity
Yeah.
created for
Hmm.
us and for our
Yeah.
families, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you speak Hebrew?
I was much better back then, but I had worked at an Israeli company. The owners were Israeli in Los Angeles. And all day long, they spoke Hebrew. They weren't speaking English for the most part, except calls here and there. And I was like, wow, and no, didn't plan it. It just ended up that way. And the next thing you knew, your ear starts. You stay around something long enough, like babies. You start saying, well, that's food, and that's the car, and it's time to go. And I started picking it up. And I remember going to my boss, and I wanted a raise, and they taught me how to asked for a raise in Hebrew. And I walked in and said, "I need a kesef." And he started laughing and he just goes, "Get out of my office. You're crazy, man." And he gave me the raise though. So, yeah.
I love it. And,
Yeah.
and that was the goal anyway, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. Exactly.
So thinking outside the box,
Mhm.
they started that a long time ago. And I was like, okay, what's in the box?
Yeah.
What's in the box? And you got to be
Yeah.
thinking outside of it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
that.
Um, it's kind of like the way you think shapes your reality. And I heard a saying, show me a person's habits and I will show you their destiny. And so the way you see the world You will see, I have friends all the time. There's a famous writer called Florence Scovel Shinn. I tell everyone to read her book. Florence, the edited version is she says, mind your words because they create your reality. That's the short version of Florence. And Florence says, be careful what you say because the universe is an echo chamber. What you say, it produces. And people don't know when they complain, they're saying prayers for the very complaints that they're putting out there. So instead of saying, isn't it horrible it's raining today? You know, you can say, something positive about rain, right? You know, boy, the trees are really going to love this rain that's here today. And so they talk about how you frame things. And so framing and what you think of things is very, very powerful. And you can develop these views of the world that will limit your possibilities. And a lot of people don't realize that they're doing that. And so that's what that goes to is framing your mind and staying open-minded.
I call it speaking life.
Yeah. And yeah, you speak, you know, what does it say? First there was the word, you know,
The word was.
and yeah, and that's where all things come, and people don't realize the tongue is the thing that builds worlds. And so speak what you want into existence.
And you'd have to
Not,
speak it.
yeah, yeah,
Speaking life.
not constantly talking about what you don't want, because what you're doing is you're reinforcing that reality too.
It's, then that's your confirmation,
That's
whether you
exactly
want to
right.
deal with that reality or not.
That's right.
So I want you to know that I used to listen to Mom's Mabley records. My parents, my parents. Yeah, remember I told you how old I am. My parents
Yes.
had this big old thing, and honey, they would play Mom's Mabley with their little friends come over. They would all be on the floor. When I read
Yes.
that, I thought
Yes.
about Carl and Pauline. It was
Yes.
so yes. Let's talk about that chapter. That is cool.
Yeah. So um, my parent my parents, well, back then, you know, it was Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Leroy and Skillet, whoever else. And they were hidden in the back of the closet. And like all curious kids, you hide something from a kid. You're saying, please uncover this and go figure out why this is in the back of the closet, hidden behind the shoes in a big brown paper bag, you know.
Right.
And one day, my parents went off and I don't know if this is a family show, but um, Richard Pryor had an album cover called That Blank is Crazy.
Yes.
And oh, that's a bad word. So I'm gonna start with that album, right? I put Richard Pryor on. I was done. I was done. And so every time my parents would leave, they drive down the street. Oh, they would be like, "Well, come with us to such and such." No, no, I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling a little sick. They would drive off, and I would go get whatever the new album record was, and I would put it on. And then we got headphones. We had those big
Oh
headphones you could
yeah.
plug in. And one night I got busted. My dad got up, and I guess I didn't realize I was laughing out loud. It was like midnight, and I'm in there in the room, and I'm in there snickering and laughing, listening to Red Fox. And he's like, "Boy, what are you doing up?" I was like, you know, and that's when they and then his records disappeared, and
Right.
I was like, you know,
But did you have the Red Fox Red albums?
yes,
Oh yes. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, Red. I was like, it was crazy. And the thing that was extraordinary is here's black people talking like, I was like, you would sit in your own house and be scared. And Red Fox was, at the civil rights part, right? He
Right.
Red's crossing that line where Richard, it got even crazier. And Richard was like out of his mind. He would speak to white people like,
Whatever.
yeah. And that and you saw the same thing in Little Richard.
Mhm.
You saw that there was just this unapologetically in your face, yes, I'm black. I dare you to say something.
Right.
And growing up with that, it was like that too, like those books. It gave you this reality that wasn't reality. It said, I'll, and then you had Good Times and you had the Jeffersons and you had television, which all of a sudden at that time you saw us everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And our generation made Motown, made Vibe magazine, made the Arsenio Hall show, made Oprah, made Michael Jordan, made Mike Tyson, made Michael Jackson, made Quincy Jones, and it was like, wow, so
A whole
yeah,
generation of brilliance that
yeah,
just exuded from everybody's house. It was like going through every particle in the world, and they did not hold back.
no,
They
no.
did not hold back.
Ebony, Jet, Black
And the
Enterprise. You walked in a
essence,
black
essence,
Essence. You walked in a black house, and on my grandmother's coffee table, there wasn't any limitations. There
right?
wasn't any. And the thing that was so amazing, I'll never forget. Before my grandmother died, I ended up on the front cover of Black Enterprise.
Oh, I love it.
And my grandmother called me one day,
Mm.
and she was from Opelousas, Louisiana. And she called and says, baby, you are on the cover of Black Enterprise. Grandmother is so proud of you. I am so you have made us all so proud. It's like because it's not just about you. You're not doing it just for you. You got a whole lot of people who aren't going to get to go to bat the way you're taking them with you. And that's why I wrote this book, to honor all of that, yeah,
And it is an honor.
yeah.
And I think the beauty of it is too often we move, we start elevating,
Hmm.
and we get so caught up in our own elevation that we forget that we have other people around us that we need to take
Yeah,
care of,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And be it a school, or be it a program, or be it a church, or be it,
hmm,
it has to be broader. and
yeah,
and it was through those experiences,
hmm,
I can still see JJ.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it was the story of JJ
yeah,
and the high rise, and
yeah,
looking at those experiences. And it
yeah,
reminded me so much of Chicago and New York,
yeah,
and
yeah,
having to navigate those experiences with my own family. And
yeah,
and we sit down and we look at this, and juxtapose that era
yeah.
to where we are now, and that communication, has it changed dramatically, or do we still have room to remember?
Yeah, I choose to believe that young people are getting their messages from someplace, their messages of hope. We only had three channels, right, back then, and one had Sanford and Son, another one had the Jeffersons, and another channel had Good Times. They all checked the box. Oh, don't come looking like we aren't
Okay,
helping people out. And
we're
Chico
doing
and
it.
and I forgot which network, but one of them had Chico and the Man. So somebody was
Oh
checking two
yeah,
boxes, right? Remember?
yeah. We didn't have that
And
one in South Bend though.
yeah, yeah. So, but I was in Texas, so we were right next to
Oh
the border.
yeah.
So you had these stories that there's a lot more presence of us out there doing things, but it was a special time because we were the first generation who could go out, own businesses, do things like everybody before us. They were setting us up for that moment. And it was the first time we're all getting out the gate. And so it's different. And I was on an interview last week or 2 weeks ago, and someone, I'm not going to say the two actors' names, but two black actors said, they were quoted. The question I was asked on the interview, these black actors said that they don't refer to themselves as black. Your book is called Black Founder. Why is that? And I said they've arrived at a place
Mhm.
thanks to Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Cicely Tyson, Diana Ross, that they don't have to call themselves black if they don't want to. But it's because those grounds were laid that they can do that. I'm playing in a space where only 1% of African Americans get access to capital from VCs today. So we're playing in an area like where Jackie Robinson was. And so you do need to point out that you're black when you're going in and you're trying to do, yes, you need your business to make money and all that other stuff, but
Mhm.
you do need
However,
to, yeah, you do need to, certain areas of the world, yes, you're dealing with that issue still. We've just advanced acting and music and other things that you don't have to worry about that. But there were people who had to walk through the doors and get the arrows in the back and go through that to make those things possible.
and that's a reality. And the
Yeah,
reality check is that you have to already understand what you're working with. And you can't
yeah,
go in with your head in the sand
yeah,
thinking that it's not going to happen to you
yeah,
when you don't know the background of that person that you are sitting in front of, and how they're
right.
coming isn't always, they come too often with a facade,
Yeah,
and you have to navigate that facade to get to where that real soul is. And sometimes you can use buzzwords to make sure that
hmm,
you can learn what it is, because you will see by their body language and their facial
yeah,
expressions how it, what button you just pushed.
yeah,
And it's real.
yeah, yep.
But you've been playing at a high level, brother, at a very high level.
Thank you, Marcia.
You've been playing at a very high level, very, very high level. But you got there by observing. So,
Mhm.
looking at how you got new jobs, how you were elevated, how you identified those people who would be the people who will help you navigate that environment. Um, I I think mentors, if you want to call it that, but
Yeah,
you had heavy hitters that were your Motown legends that
yeah,
you were dealing with, that help just say, come on, boy, let's go do this.
yeah,
This is what, oh,
yeah,
no, go over here. You
yeah,
don't need to go over here. Let's talk about that
yeah,
whole era of all of those people. I call them, and let's go, just go ahead and let's talk about some of those
yeah.
people that you were your mentors.
Yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know. And when I got there, there was a sense that you are the next generation. We need to raise you.
Mhm.
And I think Motown, being able to work at Motown, Motown had this culture of grooming from the artists to the executives.
Mhm.
And Barry Gordy and Suzanne DePass, and they built something culturally that was focused on, you need to walk in both worlds. You may
Right.
come from a black world, but you need to be able to, your shoes are shine, your suit is sharp, your hair is right, everything was right and
Impeccable.
impeccable. And when you go back and you look at the footage and those photos of the civil rights marches, those suits that they're in the South, in the summer, when it's 100 degrees outside, and there's a tie and a three-piece or a two-piece suit, impeccable, walking arm in arm, looking sharp and beautiful. And that they taught me that in Motown when I got there. They were like, take your baseball cap off in this conference room. Yeah, I got my hat turned to the side and coming in there, and they're like, take your baseball cap off, right? Um, Go put on a blazer and a tie for this meeting. I'll never forget a meeting when Diana Ross came in, and I was a kid. I was sitting in the corner. She came in, hello, ladies and gentlemen. She walked in and she sat down, and someone started speaking, and Miss Ross did this. She goes, one moment. And she was reading a document, the report for the meeting that we were about to have. And then she goes, okay, thank you. Now let's begin. Right? Just like, ooh. So they knew if you're gonna play, you can't go sit at the table talking about, oh shucks, could I have a chicken wing? You can't go play the game. And so that grooming was such a part of the culture. And so Oscar Fields and Clarence Avon and
Mm.
Paris Ely and these cats were, come on, come on, let me show you how to do this. Don't use that
Mhm.
fork, use this fork. And there was something about I was so lucky to be at a company like that. I could have been in any other company, but I got to be at that company and I saw the importance of giving back, helping others, being proud of your blackness, and being a member of society with your head up high and your shoulders back, and that you can do anything anybody else can do. And I was so grateful for, though I never even directly met him, what Barry Gordy and everyone had laid down was a cultural phenomenon that I am so blessed to be part of, that I still carry with me today.
And you know what I think is really beautiful too? There is a piece in here that speaks to how Avon, Clarence Avon,
Yeah.
and the rest of the leaders in that organization were respectful to the janitor, were respectful to the
Yes.
people who were the secretaries, were respectful, and they spoke to people with respect and love and
Hmm.
kindness and
Hmm.
generosity. Can you
Hmm.
speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I saw was, I think because there was the identification that so many of us, and they had family members who were parking the car, washing the windows, sweeping the floors, taking the trash out at night, that there was a respect for them,
Mhm.
because there was always this nod of and was in my life, my grandmother on my father's side, my father's mother, she cleaned people's houses her whole life. That's all she did. She washed their clothes, folded their clothes, took care of their children, cleaned people's houses. I remember our Christmas gifts sometimes were hand-me-downs. And the reality was, as I started to be able to climb up, I was like, well, the guys who are taking our trash and doing that, when sometimes when you're white, you won't see that. You won't have you won't have that. But we were experiencing that.
Yeah.
So you treated them in a certain way because they are you. When you go home, if you're working in Motown and you go home for Thanksgiving, your family is they're the bus drivers and the street sweepers and pick up the trash for like that's your people. And you got to remember that where you come from and not forget. And so treat everybody with respect, because they're going to go home and there's some kid that they are raising that you're going to have an effect on how you treat them and what they say. And they're going to want their kid to know when they go into the world, there's other people that are going to take care of them and be there for them. And that was, the world can be a cold place, but I got lucky and I fell into a beautiful, beautiful space.
It's huge. And that will be
Yeah.
with you forever. Now, this was something that I got so tickled.
Oh no.
I can't help it. So he said, what was great about this job is that you got to meet all of the department heads. A&R artists and repertoire, the department that scouts new talent, oversees the artistic development of the artist, marketing, sales, blah, blah, blah. And you go on and on. And the COO and the CEO, while this was happening inside the company, I had to also help coordinate getting the album art approved by the artist. And so you go through this whole experience. And then at the bottom of it, it says, if I remember correctly, when I was there, all the A&R reps, all right, Motown, were women. And
Yeah.
so I put Wakanda women.
Yes.
can,
It's
you,
true.
can you talk about the Wakanda women?
It's true. And that, I think, because it was in the culture with, you had Barry Gordy, but you had Suzanne DePass, there was always this duality. There was mom and dad in the culture. And so you saw these balances of power. And it wasn't a world where it was just the men, and so that was, head of international was a woman, head of finance was a woman, head of video production was a woman, the head of A&R, a woman. So that was great to see. And again, you develop this, oh yeah. And I think growing up in Black culture, Black women were sat at the table, if not ran the table. And so it's kind of like, how are you not going to have your mom and sister sitting at the table? And it was just great to grow up in that and see that and get your early learnings of how corporate culture can work and have equality sitting around the table. And these women weren't afraid of these men. These men were not bigger than these women. There was balance around that table. And that was really wonderful to grow up with and see that.
It was really powerful. I was on the floor when I started reading it. And, we just came out of Angela Bassett and
Yeah,
Wakanda.
yeah,
I said, oh my
yeah,
God, the Wakanda
yeah,
women. And,
yeah,
we laugh about it, but I have never seen, quote unquote, in a
yeah.
corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation,
Mhm.
with all of these Black women in leadership roles
Yeah,
making big money decisions.
yeah, 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 across the board. Yeah,
Across the board.
literally the albums that were getting made, it was all women making them, from Boys to Men's album to all of it. Who was running Michael Bivins' empire? It was all, from Vita Sparks to Cynthia Manley to, yeah, it was amazing. It was really wonderful, wonderful to see that.
That's really powerful. I just want to like frame that and take a picture and send it to all my
Yeah,
girlfriends. So,
yeah,
because, we never really knew that. We
yeah,
heard their names, but we
yeah,
didn't. And you might see the title periodically through the years, but you never really knew what that power was until I saw that in this book. And it
yeah.
really, I, I want to cut it out and send it to all of my friends. You got to read the book, but you got to
Just
read the
send them the
book.
whole book.
I
Just
said,
tell them
but
to
you
read
got
the
to read the
whole
book. That's.
thing.
I think I need to just buy a box of them. So for real, because this book, and I'm. So you've already seen the tablets. We're still here, and we only have a couple of minutes. We got 10 minutes left. I can't get through this, but we have to do a part
You
two.
gotta
Anyway,
leave. You gotta leave some mystery for them.
I know they got to buy the book.
Yeah,
So this is the last thing that we're going to be able to talk about just
yeah,
because of the time.
hmm
That I think is really, really powerful. And it is all of the little nuances of how you were supposed to be,
mm,
from the stationery to your ink
mm.
pen. Can you
Um,
talk about all of that?
yeah. part of that grooming, and so Oscar Fields was the person who played a really big role. So Oscar Fields at Motown was head of sales, and Oscar drove a red Ferrari. This brother, I can't even call him a brother, this man, his shoes, his suits, it was like amazing. And Oscar used to write, he had his personal stationery and he would write notes and send them. And he had a fountain pen. And I remember him explaining to me about a Mont Blanc pen,
Yes.
you know. And to this day, I still write thank you notes. I still use stationery. I still try and remember the doorman's name and everybody like, and that's the stuff that they taught you. And no matter what people might think of Black people and Black culture, because you'll see this or that on the news, there's a quality and a classiness and a beauty that people just don't understand, that doesn't get seen because it's not it's not what bleeds will lead, on the
Right.
news. It's not the fun stuff.
Right.
Um, and that's what I was raised with, and I got to see and experience and learn how to do there. And all of those things I still do to this day, and I talk about them in the book. Um, but it really was that classy upbringing that I really wrote this book because I wanted something that's left behind that talks of that kept all those things that they were saying and teaching us, that the next generation, we made sure there was no curse words in this book, there was no really bad language, we left all of the crazy stuff out because we want young people to be able to read it. I want my daughters in high school. I want her and middle school students to be able to read this and go, wow, oh, I should pull my pants up and I should dress accordingly if I want people to take me seriously, things like that. So,
What I think is really powerful is that if you don't have somebody to help lead you, be it in your own home or outside of your home, then you're just leaving it to the
yeah.
world to move you forward. And it sometimes we say, oh, that's to this or it's to that. But the reality is that it's self-respect and
Yeah.
it's self-love, and it's how do you grow and be prepared for the world, because the world
Yes.
is a lot different than what you may have in your household or on your neighborhood street,
Hmm. True.
right?
Very true. Yeah.
and and how do we expect our young people to find that assistance?
Yeah. I think part of it is those of us who are a little further down the road have to leave those crumbs and we have to help them along the way and we have to take them under our wing. And so that's the part that we have to do those things. Um, and it's our responsibility. What they do with it is up to them, but that's what we need to be able to do is leave those things behind so that they can identify and that they have that as markers of how they can be in the world and leave great examples.
And
I
it's
like
really
how I like how I like how Chris Rock ended his live concert when he said, "I have parents, and my parents taught us not to fight it." And he was hinting at those things. He was
that was
hinting
straight up
when
no chaser.
right when he was talking about his daughter messing around and skipping school when they were on the class trip, and he's like going to school saying, flunk, kick her out of school because I need her to understand that's not how it works in the real world. And showing up on time and being prompt. And when someone hires you for a job, give a hard work pay. It's like those are things that whatever you think of Chris Rock, he's spouting ethics up there. He's talking about a code of ethics, a code of honor up there. And that is and like he said, Will wouldn't have hit a white person. He wouldn't have hit. So those are things that I think we have to carry forward and make sure that we are, represent.
We represent, and it's not just to that employer, but we represent for our family. And
Hmm.
it's the representation. I remember I have my Aunt Helen, and she was the matriarch of everybody. Helen Pope, honey, whatever
Yeah,
she said, you better do.
yeah,
And she was like, oh, what is that dress? What? Hold on, I gotta go talk
yeah,
to my niece.
yes,
Right?
yes.
And so there was always somebody who kept account
Hmm.
of what you were doing. In my whole neighborhood, we lived in a black enclave in South Bend,
Yeah,
Indiana.
yeah,
But in that black enclave, every parent, and I can tell you, I'm not going to bore you with it, but I know everybody's house for
yes,
4 streets going east
yes,
and west, and
yes,
then 4 streets going north and south in that black neighborhood on the east side of South Bend with the Coquillard
yeah,
Park in the center. But
yeah.
every person in that household, in each one of those households, had a responsibility to whatever those children
Hmm.
were doing. They didn't care if you were
Hmm.
Pauline's or
No,
Mamie's or
yeah,
Dallas or
yeah,
Francis. We
yeah,
we all knew that they got Marsha. Does Pauline know
yes.
what? Does Pauline know you all?
They
Right.
all, the whole neighborhood raised you. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we have to go back to that because some of the people that
Mhm.
are raising our kids aren't fluent in what they need to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left, and I still have 300, 200. I'm just we're just at page 36 in your book.
Oh, yeah,
We did an
yeah,
hour
yeah.
for 36,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But I would ask everybody to please buy this book, and it is amazing. I'm telling you, Stacy, this book is off the hook. I have thoroughly. I've
Oh.
been here giggling, laughing, underlining. I got all kinds of highlights and everything else. So, thank you so much for sharing your life and giving
Thank you,
us all
Marcia.
of these wonderful nuggets to give to our family. And I'm going to give this to my 15-year-old grandson for him
Oh,
to read.
beautiful.
After he's going to have his own, because he'll probably look and say, Go, what are all these lines and the papers and the highlight?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's not going
yeah,
to do that.
yeah, yeah,
But I plan to give it to him because I think that it will help him just see the world
yeah,
and start looking at that reflection for himself as
yeah.
well. Thank you
That's
for giving
beautiful.
us. So you need to also turn this into, is this going to be a movie? I just need to know.
I have people that have already asked about the rights, and so we're like, well, we could talk, you
I
know?
think you should be doing more than talking. It need to be your rights. You got the rights to do your book, and we need to do that.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
because I want to come to the
yes.
premiere.
There you go. There you go. Good.
Stacy Spikes, thank you so very much. You got to get the book, Black Founders. Here's the cover. I know I took it off, so because it kept falling
Yes.
open. Thank you, Stacy. I really
Marcia,
appreciate it.
thank you so much. This was wonderful.
All right. Now, so when you go on that tour for a book signing, make sure you put Baltimore on your
Yes,
list.
yes, yes, definitely.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
watching. This is wonderful. Please go pick up this book, Stacy Spikes, award winning entrepreneur, Black founder, the hidden power of being an outsider. And this is not something that you want to miss. And we just got through the first third of the book. Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Marcia,
God
thank
bless
you.
you. All right.
You too.
All my best. Bye bye. Whew, that was a wonderful show. Take care.